Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're doing something a little different. We are strapping in for a look, not at, grand business strategy or geopolitical crisis, but
Yeah.
we're going into the operational engine room. We're talking about large-scale data standardization.
It's a fascinating look behind the curtain, really.
Mhm.
And our source material today is highly unconventional. It's an internal operational briefing. Basically, it's the rule book for a massive team that's handling what they call Mustang files.
Mustang file. So for you listening, what does that actually mean?
Right. So in this context, Mustang seems to refer to a specific type of priority file allocation. Think legacy data acquisition or just a huge volume of content they need to ingest quickly.
Okay, so the mission for this deep dive is to pull apart this really intense rule set. And it's focused specifically on Indic languages, so we're talking Hindi, Bengali, Tamil, Telugu, and Gujarati. We want to understand the trade-offs they're making, that tension between speed, standardization, and perfect accuracy.
Exactly. I mean, these teams are trying to turn raw regional publishing data into something standardized, something that can feed a global system. They're trying to create uniformity across these incredibly diverse languages and publishing markets. And this rule book, well, it's the necessary and sometimes brutal tool to make that happen.
So let's unpack it. Where do we even start? I guess with the most basic question. What even counts as valid content? Because if you're processing millions of records, you have to draw some hard lines right away.
They cast a pretty wide net, actually, but with very specific vertical rules. It's not just university-level stuff. They want academic content from college level and up, but they also draw the line down to high school, specifically class 9 through 12. Anything below that is immediately out.
And the subjects are all over the place. Fiction, general, STEM, humanities, finance, law. What I found interesting was how they clarify the niche areas. Like, they explicitly say alternate medicine is valid, just slotting it under nonfiction or law.
Yeah, and that tells you something, right? It tells you they've already run into this problem, this ambiguity, and they've had to make a ruling. They want a comprehensive library, but only within those very specific scopes. Which brings us to the hard exclusions, the red lines.
And the first one is a big one. It's a hard veto on religious books. They specifically call out the Bhagavad Gita as an example of what is completely invalid.
That's a huge filter. My guess is it's there to avoid any kind of complex content moderation or, political issues downstream. And along with that, they throw out calendars, journals, picture books, things that aren't really books in the traditional sense.
And they circle back to the age cutoff. Academic books for kids, age 0 to 12, basically anything below standard 9 is out. But then there are these physical constraints, which seem like a proxy for quality.
Absolutely. Two big ones.
Yeah.
First, minimum page count. A book has to be 25 pages or more. Anything less is invalid. That's pretty standard for weeding out pamphlets.
Okay, and the second one is a huge structural point. Volume sets are explicitly invalid. Why? What does that tell us about their data model?
It tells us their target system is built for single atomic entries, one row, one book. A volume set is a multi-part item. It needs a totally different metadata model to link the parts, track the series. It's a headache. So to avoid that complexity, they just cut it out. They only want self-contained units.
That makes perfect sense. Prioritize fast ingestion even if you lose some content types. Okay, so now we have the scope, and this is where it gets really interesting. We hit the language barrier, and the instructions here are maybe the most unique part of this whole guide.
This is the core workflow challenge, definitely. Converting these regional Indic-language titles into what they call phonetics English. And the guidance is, it's hyper-specific. This is not a translation of the title's meaning. You're not trying to explain what the book is about.
You're just transcribing the sound of the original title, but using English letters. Roman characters. They use an example, I think, from Tamil, where the title might mean something like, what work does God have? And they say that translation of the meaning is totally wrong for their purpose. They just want the sound.
Exactly. That distinction is so critical. They're aiming for a predictable, searchable string that's uniform, no matter what the original script was. And you don't need a million expert translators to do it. You just need people who can capture the sound.
And the mechanics of it are fascinating. They actually repurpose an existing data field. The phonetic English title goes into the EISBN column. Now, for anyone listening, EISBN usually means electronic ISBN, but here it's a bucket. It's a placeholder for this phonetic title.
Right, while the original title column stays untouched, probably for traceability. And the output has to be ruthlessly clean. No special characters, specifically no accented alphabets, like an apostrophe over an A or something. Pure English alphabet, no markings, all for system compatibility.
Okay, here's where it gets really, really interesting because it connects right back to that speed versus standardization thing. What tools are the data processors told to use for this critical conversion?
Well, get this. They're told to use Google, various online converters, they mention key converters, and, critically, ChatGPT. This is an explicit, sanctioned reliance on general AI and machine translation tools to do this mass phonetic conversion.
Wow. Okay, that immediately raises a huge question about data integrity, doesn't it? You're using an AI that's designed to translate meaning to perform this very specific structural task of transcribing sound.
Mhm.
Is that a massive vulnerability?
It's the ultimate operational trade-off. It really is. They are
Mm.
sacrificing human-verified, expert-level accuracy for the sheer speed and scale of AI processing. The implicit justification is that the system just needs a standardized string. It doesn't have to be linguistically perfect as long as the sound is close enough for their internal search. It's a data pipeline built on scalable approximation.
Okay, moving on from language. Let's talk about the rules for just maximizing throughput. Section 3, speed and efficiency. It's labeled priority work, and the rules seem to completely change how they handle data reconciliation.
This is where you see the most drastic trade-off, and it really anchors the whole discussion. So, historically, they had big problems with ISBN mismatches. The number on the sheet didn't match the actual book, and analysts would spend a huge amount of time trying to fix that.
But the new rule is a complete pivot. It says do not waste time searching with the ISBN if it's causing problems. Why?
Because it's priority work. The mandate is speed. The team has to skip the secure identifier, the ISBN, and just use the title alone to find the details, like the publisher and the year. The title, even in its new phonetic English form, becomes the primary key for finding metadata.
But isn't that a huge risk to the long-term data quality? You're sacrificing the most secure identifier you have. How do they justify that?
They justify it with pure throughput. If they can process 10 titles using a title search in the time it takes to fix one bad ISBN, they choose speed. They're basically admitting their source files are messy and that time is the most valuable resource. It's about getting more data that's mostly right into the system, rather than getting less data that's perfectly right.
And this pragmatism carries over into how they handle missing data, right? So if you search with the title and you still can't find the publisher or the page count, you can't just leave it blank.
Correct. That's when you use the quality control prep mechanism.
Hmm.
And it's all centered on one field, the website link column.
Mm.
If details are missing, the analyst has to write why they're missing in that column. Sometimes they even paste the link to the failed search result.
So that column is basically the analyst's alibi. It tells the downstream QC teams, hey, I looked, the data just isn't there. It proves they weren't being lazy.
It's the safety valve for efficiency.
Exactly.
You can go fast, but you have to document why you're skipping things. And the other constraints are minimal. Publishing year has no restriction, except for future dates, so 2026 or later is invalid. And, of course, the publishers are mostly expected to be Indian-based.
Okay, let's shift to the really nitty-gritty stuff. The edge cases. These are the bizarre, hyper-granular rules you only create when the general guidelines meet messy, real-world data. Let's start with the binding conundrum.
Ah, yes, the binding. It seems simple, but it's not. So the general rule is that mass market paperback is an invalid binding type. But, and this is a big but, if the processor searches other websites and finds the same book listed as just paperback or hardcover, they can accept it. There's flexibility.
So they're allowed to find external proof to override the internal data, but there's a hard exception to that flexibility, and this is where it gets wonderfully specific.
Yes, the system has to protect itself. If the invalid binding type, like large print or mass market paperback, is written directly inside the title field, in brackets, then the book is automatically, definitively invalid. No exceptions.
That is just absurdly granular. What does a rule like that even tell us? The distinction between it being in the metadata versus in the title in brackets.
It suggests their data parsers are specifically programmed to look for keywords inside the title string, especially in brackets, and use that as an immediate red flag. It's a data hygiene rule. It's designed to stop bad metadata from polluting the main identifier, the title itself.
Wild. Okay, what about subject classification? That has to be tough for, say, a comprehensive textbook, like a Class 10 science book that covers physics, chemistry, and biology all at once. How do you pick one?
The guidance is, again, purely pragmatic. It's about speed. If the subjects are split evenly, the reviewer can just pick any of the available granular options. It's their call. If it leans one way, say it's 70% physics, then they could pick that one.
And what if a book just doesn't fit any of the drop-down options they have?
Then they go back to the safety net. You guessed it. The reviewer is instructed to note the failure to classify in the website link column. That column is the catch-all for every problem and exception.
Finally, let's just touch on author and publisher names.
Right. Publisher name is mandatory. If it's wrong in the source file, it must be corrected. But the author name is explicitly not mandatory. That saves a huge amount of research time.
But if they do find an author or publisher name and it's in a regional language...
It gets the same treatment as the title.
Yeah.
It has to be converted into phonetics English. This just reinforces the central mission of the whole project. 100% adherence to the standardized English alphabet for all primary data strings. Standardization trumps everything else.
So if we just step back and look at this whole rulebook, what's the big takeaway? We started out talking about data entry, but this is really a blueprint for how you operationalize quality control under insane time pressure.
I think we've learned that data quality in this world isn't about absolute accuracy. It's about following a hyper-specific rulebook designed to create maximum uniformity, that's the phonetic English part, and maximum efficiency, that's the title search over the ISBN.
And all the exclusions, like volume sets or religious books, they're not random. They're all designed to filter out complexity before it can break the system downstream.
It's a perfect example of how the definition of valid or invalid is completely relative to the operational needs of your data pipeline. You have to engineer clarity, even if it means making up a rule as specific as, if the binding type is in brackets in the title, throw it out.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on, and it connects back to that really critical part of the process. This guidance explicitly allows using powerful AI tools like ChatGPT for the foundational process of converting languages into phonetic data. As more and more of these massive data operations rely on AI for that critical first step, what does that mean for the long-term integrity of the data? When your whole standardization model is built on AI approximation, what kinds of uncorrectable errors are you baking into your system at a massive scale? Something to think about.
Indeed.
That's all the time we have for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.